Have you ever filmed a whole video for YouTube only to start editing and realize that you not only need to refilm some of it, but you also missed entire sections that you need to make the video make sense? I've been there multiple times. I think every creator has, unfortunately. Sometimes it's inevitable, but there is one thing that you can do to make it a little less possible. Let's talk about all the components it takes to make the perfect script. They're like eye pokers. Gross to think about. Just in case, let me introduce myself. My name is Claire Miller. I'm a content producer that loves helping creators get started on their content journey. Subscribe to see videos like this weekly that will help you get started or feel more confident on content creation. Be sure to hit that like button if you find this video helpful so it can help reach other creators like you. You can approach planning, specifically scripting a video, in so many different ways. But today, we're going to review the elements you should include no matter how you choose to script your video. The first part of your video that you need to include, which is also going to be the first part of your video, is something that you have probably heard about. In fact, there are people who only talk about this. Their niche is to talk about just this, which is your hook. The whole point of the hook of a video is to capture your audience's attention right away. What keeps people watching is those first 3 to 7 seconds of your video. Are you engaging or not? I think we've all clicked on a video and clicked away before those 3 or 7 seconds are up because we're just not engaged with what's going on screen. But how do you do that? Give them a little bit of a teaser of what they'll be getting from your video today, which is a fine balancing act of letting them know what they'll be getting from your video while also making them wonder just a little bit so they don't get everything within the first 7 seconds. There are tons of videos out there just on hooks. So if you are struggling to figure out how to make those first seconds of your video engaging, and that's where you're seeing a drop off from your audience, I highly encourage you to watch videos about hooks and also go back and watch videos that you've just enjoyed and watch for their hooks. What was it that made you keep watching? 2 of the most popular tactics out there right now are 1, to ask a question at the beginning of your video, like I did with this one. Have you ever filmed a whole video for YouTube? Or 2, if you do a visually engaging hook like I did with my coffee making one, it can be a bit longer. How long should your hook be? It depends on how engaging it is. The shorter and the more to the point, the better. And the last thing we'll cover about hooks are 2 things you really shouldn't do anymore. When you are starting your video, a hook is not saying, hey guys, and then welcome to my channel or blah, blah, blah. And the second one is immediately starting with nothing else but, hi, I'm Claire, or introducing yourself. Your hook is not the place for you to introduce yourself. However, the second part of your video, which is the second piece we're about to talk about, is it is your intro and like, share, subscribe line. The hook is not where you introduce yourself, but you still need to introduce yourself. The audience needs to know who they're talking to. And I'm giggling at this while I'm saying it because the video I did last week, I didn't introduce myself because I was rushing to make it. So don't forget to remind your audience. Say like, share, and subscribe. You need to say that at some point. Even as a creator, I have definitely watched videos that I have enjoyed, and I've still forgotten to like, share, or subscribe at all, which is, this section should only be a sentence or 2. You'll see a lot of creators write this down and just repeat the same thing over and over again. I tend to change mine up a little bit depending on the exact video that I'm making, but it's pretty basic. A script from this can be like I did for this video, which you just watched a little bit ago. So if you want to see it again, go back to it. But also, I've shared the script that I used for that in the description below for you to copy and paste and manipulate to make work best for your channel. I want to share a couple reasons why I do take the time to script, and I find it very important to my video process. I actually have to refilm a little bit more because I didn't fully script this video and I didn't cover all of the points I wanted to, but I didn't find that out until I was in editing, which is also why I always bonus tip, I haven't done one of those in a while, is that is why I try to film in the morning, upload all my content, and get a rough edit in the same day so I can refilm a little bit of content, especially on the days that are really long. I'll have to change that when winter comes because the days are much shorter. And the second reason is quite personal to me, but if you are like me, you might find it helpful. If you notice, because I edit some of them in for fun, I tend to ramble a lot. And when I just ramble, it's quite difficult to edit through because I repeat myself. I don't finish half my thoughts, completely miss points, and it just makes editing very difficult. So those are the reasons why I choose to script. And another video that I'm going to make, but I do have a blog post about it, is 2 different ways to approach scripting. So if you want to check that out, the link will be in the description and the video will come at some point. I don't know when. Those are really scary to keep your eyes open and drink. This third one is a little unique. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, but I think it is extremely important when you're going through scripting your video. You need to think about your transitions. Fade to black, fade back in, crossfade, or, walking off screen and walking back on screen. A lot of people think of visual or editing transitions. I'm here to remind you that sometimes your talking points need a transition. I actually just did this to you from the hook to the intro. I made sure when I was talking about the hook, I ended with a point that was very closely related to the intro. The fact that you don't introduce yourself in the hook, but you do introduce yourself in your intro. Your hook is not the place for you to introduce yourself. However, the second part of your video, which is the second piece we're about to talk about, it is your intro. And another tactic is to make it obvious that you're transitioning from one point to another. I feel like I say this a lot, but there are a lot of ways to do that. And I give this tip out, I feel like, whenever I also say that. So I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it really applies to everything. But there are a lot of ways to do that, and you need to experiment to figure out the best ways for you. And also remember, just like scripting, every video, every transition is different. So you just need to figure out what's going to work best for you and that video, and really that talking point to that talking point. Another example of this, though, of an obvious transition that I've done recently is making it extremely obvious by taking a break. Here's what I mean by that. It helped me, so I feel like it'll help somebody else. Now it's break time. Okay. That was necessary. Or keep it simple and just tell them that you're moving on to the next point. That is a completely okay way to do that. Transitions are the main reason why I like to fully script out my video. I like to make sure that my thoughts I'm taking the viewer through flow in a way that makes sense. So when I'm scripting, I make sure that those transition pieces are in there to take the viewer from, again, point A to point B to point C. For this video, the transitions are a little bit easier because we're talking about scripting a video. And the reason I can get away with it is because I can do transitions like this. What we're doing right now, talking about these points, is the next point, the body, the actual content that you're talking about. Why are you making your video? What is it that you're sharing? I might be throwing you back to high school if you ever had to write an essay, because that's exactly what that is. It is your 5-paragraph essay. It is the 3 paragraphs in the middle. What is the content you're talking about? I would categorize it into different subjects. Like this video, I am actually listing the different pieces of my body on the whiteboard right now. You can have as many body pieces as you want or not. It depends on how long you're trying to make the video and how much content you're trying to cover. I find this really hard to generalize because if I'm talking to an instructor who's teaching anything from fitness to math, their body is going to look a little bit different than somebody I'm talking to who is doing a product review, which all of these pieces would still apply to a product review, just in a little bit of a different way. So these are the components, and you need to manipulate them for your content and your audience for each video. I'd love to know in the comments, do you script your video or do you hit record and start talking? Both processes work, and I find it fascinating to find out what people do. And that right there was an engagement call out. Part of the way through your video, usually somewhere in the body, depends on how many sections in the body there are. I'll usually put it about 2/3 of the way through. You can put it wherever it makes the most sense though. But an engagement call out is what I just did. It's asking for your viewer to engage in a different way. It's a step up. It is the next level beyond just saying like, share, and subscribe. I don't do this for every video, but it is the goal of mine to do it because at some point in every video you have, I bet there is something that you can ask the audience to comment on or ask them to like if they specifically like something. Those are two of the best ways I've seen to use it. This part isn't technically necessary, but it is so good to include. I just highly encourage you to include it. Break up the sections of you talking and teaching or sharing whatever it is that your content is about that week with your engagement CTA somewhere in there. I kind of like doing this whiteboard technique because you can see how close we are. The OCD in me really wants to measure though and make that perfect. I cannot tell you how hard it is to not do that. So we're going to keep filming instead of thinking about that. The last two pieces are really one piece, but I would think about them individually because they build on each other. They're both your conclusion. They're both the ending to your video. That's where we're at. We're at the end of the video, but there are two parts to it. The first one's going to be wrapping up the content that you just talked about. The second piece of it is to consider your YouTube end screens while you're filming the wrap up of your video. There are a lot of ways to approach how you want to do end screens depending on how you want to do end screens. I could make so many videos about end screens because I've talked about them so much in my life. The purpose of an end screen is keep them from clicking away. There are a lot of techniques to do this, and I'm overwhelming myself with trying to figure out how to talk to a majority of people rather than the individual creator. But a few tips around it is what we'll go over when we talk about end screens, because first we have to talk about the wrap of it. We're going to go in order still. The first piece of your conclusion of your video is wrapping up what you just talked about. This should not be long. I find myself when I do my wrap up sometimes trying to repeat everything I had just said, which is not the point at all. The wrap up is to quickly and briefly tell the viewer what they should have just gotten from that video, what they can do next with whatever it is you just covered, or tell the audience what to do next from what they just got from you. That's as general as I can make it, and you can get much more specific depending on the type of content that you're creating. The second part of your conclusion is the YouTube end screen that they allow you to put on, which has some rules from YouTube itself. A few rules you need to know that YouTube has put in place about end screens. They are at maximum 20 seconds long. They attach to the end of your video, and you cannot move them in at all. The elements you're allowed to put on your screen are videos, playlists, or subscribe button. You want to be careful with making it feel really overcrowded. Be intentional behind what you put on there. You can make the most effective time for your end screens. Just know that you need 20 seconds at the end of your video to both keep them engaged a little bit, as well as have them go to another piece of your content. I highly encourage you to play around with end screens. There are a lot of ways to do them. Check out some of your creators and see the way it is that they do them. As my personal content, I've decided to just put some funny B-roll or just put it on the end of the video so that while I'm still talking and wrapping up the video, I can just put the elements where I need to. I do think about where I'm going to put those elements and what elements will be attached to them at that point, because if I want to share something specific, like, hey, because we just did this, check out this video, I want to make sure I know either where to point or not point, but I also want to make sure I have room for that element. I can talk a lot about end screens. There are a lot of ways to script videos. Keep trying different styles and techniques and figure out what works best for you, or sometimes what works best for the video. This is a video about scripting, and I didn't script most of it. I scripted certain parts to make sure I hit those talking points, but I left a lot of it open-ended for me to just talk. We'll see how I enjoy that in the editing process. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, you should have a call to action at the end to let viewers know what to do, whether it's the next video they should watch or what they just got from your video. From this video, you should have learned the key elements you need to include to script your video. To make all this scripting a little bit easier, I decided to make a download. Well, I didn't actually have to make it because it's the one that I use for every single one of my videos. So I just changed a few things, made an explanation page, and thought, why not share it? I'm not kidding when I say it. It is the way that I script every video, except for my monetization journal videos, because I do those off the cusp. However, I'm trying to figure out a good way to do those. It works really well for someone who is an overthinker or wants to do a video a lot like the way that I do my videos, where you might have a location or two, you have some graphics and some effects you want to add, and you also want to make sure to include all 7 points we just talked about. And I would love to know how it works for you. And better yet, the first video that you make with it, please come back to this video and share the link so that I can check it out. Okay. All right. Last thing. I decided to make one more little video that's just a tutorial on how exactly I use this document so that it can fully make sense to you. And I'm going to share that link also in the description, and it'll be obviously on the end screen of the video as well. So if you do download it and you want just a little bit more instruction on how to use it and to see one of mine as an example, be sure to check out that little instructional video. Okay, that has to be everything. The most important thing is thank you so much for giving me some of your time today and watching this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Please be kind if you didn't like this video. And if you did, let me know by liking or sharing or subscribing or turning notifications on, all those things that we talked about multiple times today. But have a great day, and I will see you next week.